Okay, today so we're talking about how to make cold outreach work so that people stop ignoring you like you're a nobody. In this cold outreach video, I'm going to show you the top misconceptions that you've been having about lead generation and how it is killing your business. I will also provide you with a foolproof framework that would help you achieve success using this approach. It works for most people if you know what you're doing. Cold outreach is still one of the best ways to get clients or customers in 2025. Even big players such as Alex Hormozy attribute cold outreach to his success. Anybody who starts in any kind of business from scratch needs cold outreach one way or another. Cold outreach has made companies zillions. It worked 100 years ago, which is true, and it works today and it will continue to work tomorrow. If you're sending 50 DMs a day or blasting cold emails and still not getting replies, then you need to understand that this video is for you. Because there are people who are out there that are making this work. Like people are out there and they're making this kind of things work. They're making it work for themselves, they're making it work for their clients, and they're making it work for their students. But all of us who want to make it work do so need to do this using these principles so that they might work. Because as time goes by, it's getting harder and harder to land in the inbox. There's always one form of email deliverability crisis, one way or another. So it's very important to be able to know what you are doing. The things that worked 6 months ago don't necessarily even work now. So you should really be up to speed on how to make this work. If not, you could end up spending thousands, hundreds to thousands wasted because you don't know what you're doing. So to answer the fundamental question you have in your mind, why isn't cold outreach working for me in the first place? Most people think cold outreach is dead, and fair enough, because most people don't do it correctly, so they tend to fall into that trap. When things aren't done correctly, people come to the conclusion, okay, this channel does not work. But the truth is that most channels work. Every single channel works. It just depends on where you are, what you're trying to achieve, and your customer. I would obviously not be reaching out to my customers on Pinterest or Reddit. My customers are not there. My customers are on LinkedIn, X, and email. So obviously that's where I should be hitting. It really depends on where your customers are. Sometimes it's better to reach out to your customers via Instagram, as opposed to, let's say, LinkedIn. I know a guy who he used to reach out to people on X, but then realized he was not getting as good as a result. He thought his offer was bad, but then he decided to switch things up and move over to Instagram to try out his offer there, and then it's working for him. So it's not necessarily your offer, although you should always want to make sure you have a good offer. But the channel where you're contacting people to is very important. And most people think cold outreach is dead, and in some way, yes, that is because it's only gotten harder. You need to know, you need to have more know-how and volume to make it work. This is just like a simple graph showing. I should type the dates here if I could do that. This is just a simple graph showing the relationship between the difficulty of getting um, customers via email and the time uh, during this process. So let's say back in 2016, you could just send 500 emails and then you get somebody. In fact, I think it's probably around 200, not 500. You can just send like 200 emails to a broad generic list and you're sure to get somebody, but doing that today you would not go anywhere. So this is an overly simplified graph illustrating the relationship between time and difficulty. As more people engage in cold outreach, because the competition is fiercer than ever, everybody is doing it, everybody is on it, because it's such a cost-effective way to get people through the door, and it makes no sense not to. But you should also know that a lot of people going on it reduces customer sensitivity to contacts via these channels. So it only makes more sense that the competition will increase and customer sensitivity and skepticism. Sensitivity will decrease and skepticism will increase. So that's usually how it works, which results in more resistance from buyers. It's become clear that the average prospect gets hundreds of emails, DM calls, and texts and SMS in a month. I also get the same thing as well. And people who engage in cold outreach for the first time are usually naive about what results they expect. So if you're starting this out, you cannot just send like 50 emails and then expect to land customers in a week. It's just unrealistic. I think all of us have been there thinking about that before. We've all thought that maybe if I just send, okay, good. I've even written down some assumptions here, so it leads perfectly to that point. So these are some of the assumptions that you've made. I just need to send 200 DMs to land my client for my copywriting agency. I just need to send 500 cold emails to land a client for marketing agency. If I do 10 cold calls a day, I can just book my first clients in 10 days. This is statistically unrealistic. Now we're in different channels for cold outreach, and each channel has its own win rate. So not all channels have the same win rate. It could be different depending on the channel you're in. Some people X works for them, other people Instagram works for them, other people is LinkedIn that works for them. So it really depends on what you're doing and the channel that you're using to get there. Instagram tends to have a wild variance when they are doing their things. I'm not too sure because I don't have a lot of data on Instagram on what it does. You primarily it's X, LinkedIn, and email. So it really depends on what you're doing. SMS, same as calls. I'm just going through this again. This 0.0025, that's about 0.2% or 0.02%. LinkedIn is 0.6%. These are win rates. Win rates, the number of emails or touches you would need to be able to get a customer in a phone call. So you ultimately close them. Instagram 0.005 to 0.002. As I said before, I don't have a lot of data on that. For context, as I've said before, these are the number of clients you close from contacting 100 prospects. It's so by these estimates, you can tell that you're not. It takes a lot to even close one. You need to really double down your volume in the first place. And this is what your prospect inbox looks like for context. So when you're sending emails, you're trying to stand out in something like this. They're usually swamped most of the time with tons and tons of messages to respond to. It gives some perspective of how important it is to stand out doing this. It's clear in your cold outreach campaigns that your first words, be it your subject, your headline, your preview text, you have to stand out. It's very important. If not, nobody is going to open your emails or even take you up on your offer in the first place, so it will not even be so useful. It's critical to not get discouraged by what you see online. A lot of them usually fake it to boost authority or an info product they might be selling on the back end to stay relevant. Don't be fooled by the big numbers you see online. Ever like don't be fooled. The numbers you see them getting they're probably running like a re-engagement campaign to their previous champions. So you should not be discouraged when you see that. I know some of you would see something like someone sends 800 emails and they're getting like a 10% positive reply rate. It doesn't work like that. Most of your campaigns are not going to be hitting those numbers, but there are some exceptions to where people can get really good, but those tie down to having like really, really tight micro lists. So a micro list is when you're sending to, let's say, 5,000 plus. Even you can even go lower than that and be sending to 200. So it just depends on how deep you're willing to go, which how niche you're willing to go. But then just know that you'll be sacrificing some volume too, because it takes a good sample size to be able to justify whether a campaign did well or not. Using the sample size of 10 or let's say 500 to justify whether a campaign works or not is not as good as using 1,000. So let's say your total addressable market is okay. So let me just explain this. Coming back to that, when you're sacrificing quality over volume, let's say your total addressable market is 200. So these are the number of prospects or customers in your total addressable market. Um, cold emailing 200 people with a very niche or targeted offer may sound good in theory, but it's not very good in reality, because you have to realize that just because you're targeting these people with um, a solid offer does not translate to more revenue on the back end, because you have to first understand that open rates and reply rates don't really change. Okay, especially open rates. Open rates stay around that 50%, around 50% ish. So getting about 50% on your open rates tends to help. Now there's a lot of um backlash on not using open rates to um judge the efficacy of your campaign, but for a campaign like this, like it makes sense to be judging how well it is, because open rates tend to reduce your deliverability. That's why people don't emphasize it or discourage, or that's why they discourage it. I would encourage it if you're running very niche campaigns like this one. I would not encourage if you're sending like let's say 500,000 emails. Yeah. Then that way you would have less chances of getting into the inbox that way. You would not want to be sending 500,000 emails and then have open rates activated. No, it's better to judge from reply rates. But coming back to that, reply rates are, tend to be around 1%. 1% means your emails are landing in the inbox typically. I'll get to the DM parts, but emails are usually. I suggest anyone who's doing this. I really suggest you delve into the email side of things because it's usually easier to get results that way if you know what you're doing. It's harder to track the efficacy or the success of your DM campaigns rather than email because email the data is just there. There's enough data to go over these things and realize, okay, is this working? Is this not working? Based on this metric, what is going on here? What is not going on here? For DMs, it's not really a lot of data on that, so I will not be able to say a lot on that. But for emails, yeah, they are proven frameworks, things that if you do, no matter where you are, who you're targeting, then it will work. That's why email works so well, and it's been around long before DMs, long before Instagram, long before anything else, and emails will only continue to be there. So it just makes sense. If you're sending DMs on Instagram, you should probably back that up with emails. If you're sending voice notes on LinkedIn, you should also back that up with emails. Emails just work so well, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to have an outreach campaign and you're not emailing anybody and just um, focusing on DMs alone. No, it doesn't make a lot of sense. There's so much data on emails to go off on, and the barrier to entry is so low, although it's increasing because of the skill gap it takes now to be able to get good results. But still, if you're running any kind of outreach campaign and you're leaving emails out of it, I think you're really setting yourself up for struggle or just downright failure, in my opinion, which is a good opinion, and you should probably take note of that. So coming back to that, if you're sending like 200, if your TAM, so total addressable market, if your TAM, the number of people you can contact is 200, and let's say 1% of that replies, 1% of that is two, about two. Okay, let me even be lenient and say 2% reply. So that's like four people will reply to you in that instance. And if four people reply to you, it's not even a positive just reply. Like standard reply rates, irrespective of positive or negative, is about 1 to 2%. You can probably increase that since you're going for a microlist, but generally it's around that 1 to 3%. So going with 2%, four people respond. Let's say one person says is interested. There's no guarantee you're getting that person on sales call because it's just one person, and then you're working with a mentality that is scarce that says to you, oh, I just have this one prospect. If I don't book him on a call, then I'm definitely not going to do this. Costs are coming, the subscriptions are going to renew. I don't have so you just when you're starting out, I generally like to go for the believe that you should be sending a lot. Maybe 10,000 in a month would be good because then you'll be able to offload it. It just makes much sense. I think it would be better to show you. Okay, so this is a very good example of the kind of results that you might be getting starting from there. This is just a very good way to visualize the kind of results you could be getting. So let's say you're sending 200 emails, 100 emails, and reply rates are 2%. Positive reply rates from those. These are standard metrics, right? So 2% on your reply rates, 20% on your positive reply rates. Close rates is about 15%, and then deals closed depending on the revenue or your pricing packages. Then you have that done. So let's say you're sending 200 emails, and then you have a reply rate of, let's even be lenient and say 3. Let's just say 3%. 3%. Positive reply rate, let's leave it at 22%. Close rates, let's say 20%. Okay, and then you're sending 200 emails. Deals closed, it's not even up to 1. Okay, let's try and put down 500. And let's say your pricing was let's say your pricing was 1,500 in USD. So you're not even closing up to one deal from that, sending 500 emails. Even these metrics are actually very good. Getting this on a campaign really it's really good. And 2% positive reply rate, that's actually very good. So sending 500 emails just doesn't work in that sense. You see how it doesn't work very well. But let's say you're sending 5,000 now. Let's say you're sending 5,000. See how it works. It works better. Two deals closed just from that. A 3% reply rate, 20% positive reply rate, close rate 20%, deals closed two. With opportunity is 1,500 USD. Done. That's 3,000 generated already just from 5,000 emails, which is relatively easy to do. So imagine sending 15,000 emails. Okay, no, 50,000 emails, 20 deals closed. That's 30,000 cash collected. So you see how that makes sense. Well, let's even bring it down a little bit. Let's not get too optimistic here. 15,000, 6 deals closed. Okay, so now for context, turnaround time for cold emails. Don't think you'll send 5,000 emails and then next week you're collecting cash. It doesn't work like that. There's something called the sales cycle. Of course, if you're here, you should obviously know what a sales cycle is. So sales cycle is the time taken for your prospects and gets accustomed to your offer, what you're selling, what you're doing, and before they warm up to you and say, yes, I'm ready to buy, so and so. That usually takes about 2 to 4 weeks. In any sense, sometimes it could take a month depending on the contract value. But for relatively medium offers, it should take about 2 to 4 weeks. It should not take more than that. If it does, you can probably increase that by having like a a sales letter, maybe a VSL on your landing page tends to reduce sales cycles because the better you can reduce resistance to the buying process, the faster your sales cycles will be. It's simply that's straightforward. So if you're able to do that, then you're able to make more revenue faster. So coming back to that, okay. But you have to remember there are some people that are actually hitting good numbers, like those numbers I showed you, where people are like getting 30,000 in it. Like people are hitting those numbers, and it's very possible, very achievable, very simple to do that if you know what you're doing. Among this, there are three fundamental reasons why it's not so great for you right now. So why you might be struggling. Number one, you probably have guessed that you're sending too little emails or DMs. If you're sending DMs, I just think you should send emails instead. It just works so much better. Because DMs, there's just, unless there's a way to like crack it better than emails. Because the cold email ecosystem, there's just a lot of support for it as opposed to DMs. I don't know about DMs as much, and we don't have a lot of data on DMs. All our data is centered around emails, and they just work so well as opposed to DMs. Because there's no way to qualify your prospects via a DM. But with emails, you can do that beforehand using tools like Apollo, Clay, Ocean. It's just so much better that way. So if you were ever sending DMs before, you should probably butter that up with emails. It just makes so much sense that way, and you're only going to get better results. So emails are the way forward. Number two, you don't know your customers well enough. I think I talked about this one in the previous video I did. So you don't know your customers well enough to be able to actually give them what they want. But this is actually a simple problem to solve. You could just tone your offer to be able to solve something that any business would be going through right now. So what's one thing businesses would always need to the end times come? They would always need customers. And how do you get customers? Well, you need to put your product out there, or you need to make people aware of what you have. In other words, they need leads, they need eyes on their business. So advertising, media buying, lead generation, copywriting, sales, these things will always be in existence, even with the advent of AI now. But it might take a while before that thing really kicks in and really replaces people, because I don't think it's there yet. There's a lot of hype on it, but I don't think it's there yet. I think probably in a couple of months or years, then we'll be able to see it. Now, I explained this in my last video, so maybe I'll link it down below so you watch it. But these are just the common three. Number three is that you have a bad product, but that can easily be solved unless you're in the software market. So you might need to pivot. You might need to, if you've not found PMF, then you might need to pivot or you just need to validate your offer. In that way, you will need to do number one. So before you jump to number two and number three, you need to do number one. So number one number one is just sending 15,000 emails to validate your offer. You can just do that. I think closer to 10,000 is better. For anything you're trying to sell, probably just send 15,000 emails. If you get, let's say, just one booked call and then no response or nobody's buying, then you know you either have a bad product or you're in the wrong market. One of those two. But don't jump to two and three without validating number one, so that you do not waste your resources. Very important. Okay, so when you're doing this, just stick to the basics. There are lots of videos talking about this, but there are just some things that will never change. So I'm just going to emphasize the things that will never change here. Because I know there are people like tactics, people like so just do this and this and this. But you know, tactics tend to change over time, and then principles will always be held tightly. Because as things change, people tend to stick to the things that do not change, and these things I'm showing you do not change. In fact, as things are changing, these things will only get more important. So number one is targeting the right people. That comes back to what I was saying here. Know who your customers are in the first place. So doing that will help you a lot. Number two, write like a human being, not in a robotic tone. No hide. Just avoid sounding like a corporate middle manager. You don't want to be doing that. Then just write how you talk. That's usually what I do in my cold email copy. Then lead with context. Mention something specific. Now this is signal based posting. This is where you let your prospect know you've done your homework. But this can easily be done using AI just to build rapport and to show, okay, yes, this is not a mass email, even though it is. So your prospect has more, did I say respect? Maybe not respect, but more warmth towards you. It's not very cold, when you're sending that. And offer a clear win, no vague synergy. Don't sound like someone who uses LinkedIn. LinkedIn is important, so I'm just joking around, but don't sound like someone who uses LinkedIn. When we just don't sound vague. That's all. Just be straight to the point. The best emails I've seen are the ones that just blast out and just straight to the point. Just asking a question about, do you want this or not, and then you probably get your answer. And it removes a lot of the fluff instead of going back and forth with prospects that are unqualified or people that are not willing to buy from you. You just ask them, do you want this? Yes or no? No, yes. Leave me alone. Interested, not interested. Answer that. Just to the point. It will save you a lot of time doing that. Low friction CTA, you could end with something like open to a 7-minute call next week. It converts better than let me know your thoughts. Even something like maybe putting a lead magnet in the copy, it works. But then you have to go through a bit of back and forth because not everybody who takes up your lead magnets is qualified in that point in time. So what I would just suggest is, if you're sending like 15,000 emails, just go straight to the point and ask them if they would be interested in what you're offering, instead of adding like a lead magnet. It just filters out the people who are interested or not, so it's just better that way. Okay, so now going to the tools. These are just common tools that I use every week to run cold outreach systems for myself and for the customers I serve. Okay, so Smartly, so there are many automated email outreach platforms. There are many, but we use Smartly currently because we currently need it for something. So Million Verify, when you get your emails, you cannot just send them like that. There is a lot to sending emails that many people do not know. It's not just about sending. It's not just about writing something and clicking send. You have to be able to do this properly. So when you get emails, not all of those emails will be valid. You want to validate them with an email validation tool to remove invalid emails, to reduce your likelihood of being marked as spam. So for that, we just use Million Verify. There are many out there, but Million Verify has been around for so long and they are relatively cheap. So it makes no sense to use anything else. So Million Verify is what I would recommend. Then probably for your onboarding and to track leads, you could use, for example, we just typically use some spreadsheets. We just use spreadsheets, but some people prefer to use Notion. So I put Notion here for the sake of you people who, to reduce complexity. But for simplicity, you could just use spreadsheets. It works well for us. Then for your outreach campaigns, when you're sending those micro lists, or just in general when you're contacting your prospects or trying to follow up with them, sending a loom tends to work too very well, because it shows that the more you can show you're interested, the more you can show your prospect that, okay, yes, I'm not just sending to 1 million people and see who buys back, but you're actually taking your time out. That will tend to make you stand out. And tips to help your copy. I help businesses grow. Book a call with me now. Nobody responds to this. It's too vague and ambiguous. Something like we increased book calls by 35% in 30 days using a cold email, blah blah blah. It just shows that you're you know what you're saying, and you're interested in helping your prospects in specific ways. And then when your prospect sees the methodology that you use, they are more likely to respond with interest, or just downright trying to book a call because they probably already had this problem and they're trying to solve it, and then they met somebody who knows what they're talking about. um People will say many different things, methods, tactics, or framework, blah blah blah, about cold outreach, but then there's only one principle you actually have to use. Would you respond to your own cold email, DM, voice note, or call? That's all you need to be asking. If you're sending an email, would you respond to it? Would you respond to your own email? You can just test it out by sending the email to yourself. So you can just, when you use tools like Smartly, you can, there's a feature where you can send it to yourself. Although maybe down the line when you're setting this up, or when you get help setting this up, there are features. Just send the email to yourself. You can even do this manually. Just send it to another email address of your own and then check it. If it's something that looks good, and always check on mobile, because most of your prospects are checking emails on their phone as opposed to laptops. You're setting emails on your laptops, your prospects are checking it on your phone. It makes sense to make sure your copy looks good on mobile too. So the point is, when you send these things, would you respond to it? Your CTA, is it clear? Is it something that people just watch and they have no clue what to do next? It's important to also ask these questions. So this is just, how would I put it? This is just a very fairly shallow way of starting out. Like, this is just like bare basics, spine, skeletal. There's so much more on into this, but the return on investments by making this work is so much that it's worth the time, sweat, and effort. So if you have no idea where you are now, in the description below I made like a quiz to let you know where you stand and what you should be doing to make your cold outreach work, or if you should even consider using cold outreach at all. And then if you need this doc for any reason, I also left it down in the description below if you want to just go to the documents again. So, but if you need help, if you're working on cold out and it's just not working for you, maybe deliverability is bad, maybe sending to your prospect that are using Outlook is just too bad, like you can't reach your prospect using Outlook, your copy seems to not be working, like you don't know that your copy that is not working, maybe you think you have an offer problem, you've tried cold email before but it doesn't work, so you move to other channels. I'm telling you, cold email works. You just have to be able to do it right. I need someone who knows what they are doing, because it's very important. Like, you can't fake knowledge on this. It's very important. Like, just talking to, I can sit with you and talk to you for 5 minutes and then decipher whether you know what you're talking about or not, or whether you've just been watching YouTube videos and then you're regurgitating everything you've said before. So if you need help setting out your email system at all, then link is in the description below. You can just book a call down with me. We'll just run through where you are right now and then where you'd like to be, and then try and fill in that gap of what actually needs to be done. Because you can make this work. You've tried it before, people are not responding to you. You're seeing other people, it's working for them, but it's not working for you. Like, it can work for you. Like, we can make this work. So if you need that help, just link is in the description below. If you need the quiz, description below. And if you need this doc, description below. So I think that should be all for now. I'll probably make another video when I have the energy and strength, but you can let me know what you'd like to see down in the comments below, and then check out the other video that explains the 3 parts. Yes, this section, because this section is important to know where you stand. Or you can just skip down and take the free quiz. The quiz probably has a better return on investment, but the video is good too. So yeah.